and share a thought with you all. I think my colleague from Douglas County highlighted something really, really important. And what that is that right now we have a lot of emotional tension in our community, in our state, and in our society. And I know that because I lived it. Whether we're talking law enforcement, whether we're talking school boards, whether we're talking special districts, there is a lot of tension. You know, and we can talk all day long. Did it start with COVID? Was it before? Where did it come from? But the fact of the matter is, there is tension, and I think we all know that. And so, when I read this bill and I look at this amendment, what immediately pops to my mind is what my colleague from Douglas County highlighted, which is that with the amount of tension that we have in our communities today, a bill like this really opens the door for folks to have a mechanism by which they can channel that tension, that frustration, that angst, whatever their driver is. They can they can channel those tense emotions into an ethics complaint against whoever it is that they're not getting along with. And I can speak to that personally because I lived it and I saw it during my experiences these last couple of years. There are times out in the community it felt like we were sitting on a powder keg and it was just waiting to blow because the sheer amount of energy out there of folks not being able to get along with other folks. And so my concern with the bill, and the reason I want to speak to this amendment, is because, as written, I am worried that the bill allows that tension to be channeled into a legal ethics complaint against someone that is the recipient of a personal grudge, personal vendetta, or some other ideological difference. And that without this amendment, we leave that door wide open. And what this amendment does is it recognizes, okay, if we want to have the Ethics Commission have the ability to investigate these school boards, these special districts, okay, but let's at least put some guardrails around it so that the energy that is in our society right now, that we read about in the newspapers, that we talk about all the time, that all of the sociologists analyze and try to figure out where's this coming from, let's put this amendment on the bill. Let's build in that guardrail to ensure that complaints are not made frivolously and on the basis of serving as an outlet for the tension that we have right now in our society. This resonated with me for a second issue. And it's because I know how often frivolous complaints are made. Y'all know I work for a municipal government. Frivolous complaints against local government employees happen a lot. And when we add school boards and special districts into this, guess what? You're going to have complaints made against those individuals as well, and there will be frivolous complaints because of the tension and the angst that we have in our society, to say nothing of whatever the underlying factual, the facts of that particular matter are. Whether it has something to do with school lunches or whatever the special district is doing, there's a lot of reasons that we have right now that would drive people to make these complaints against each other. And so what this amendment does is it ensures that we have at least guardrails to ensure that the complaints that are being made for at least something close to legitimate reasons, and that we're screening out the most egregious and frivolous complaints by ensuring that there is some accountability for making that frivolous complaint. As a police officer, I loved my body camera. And I loved it because of this exact issue. I was the subject of complaints. But my body camera exonerated me, think I could go on record and say 100% of the time, because I never got in trouble for any of it, because I did my job correctly. And since I did my job correctly and there was still a complaint made, that highlights the fact that without this amendment, we have created a situation that is ripe for frivolous complaints to be made by neighbors against neighbors, by community members against community members, by volunteers against other volunteers in these particular areas where they might not be getting along. And so this amendment to me is incredibly important because this amendment provides the same protection to the rest of society that my body camera provided to me. It ensures that we have a standard to ensure that legitimate complaints move forward, that accountability is had, but that accountability is also a two-way street. And that individuals who try to use an ethics complaint in order to further their own particular agenda will be held accountable for that. And that's important because these ethics complaints come with a lot of weighty attachments to them. In communities, folks talk. We all know that folks talk in community. And when these ethics complaints happen, that is not without residual impact. So even if somebody is then found to be innocent, there's still an impact to their reputation. And so we want to ensure that ethics complaints are made on the appropriate basis and that there are accountability mechanisms in place for frivolous complaints. And so I would strongly support this amendment because of that protection that it provides and because at a time that we know that our schools, special districts, many facets of our society are struggling with staffing. They're struggling to recruit qualified individuals to help. They're struggling to be able to have the appropriate personnel to be able to accomplish the mission of that school district, of that special district, of whatever other function in society we're talking about. And so something like this amendment, I think, provides that appropriate balance of ensuring that volunteers and that people who want to contribute to their community aren't turned away by having yet another layer of potential liability imposed on them. So to me, this amendment solves a lot of issues. It enables a complaint to be made. It enables it to go forward. But it also provides that two-way accountability to ensure that if that complaint is determined to be frivolous, that the impact to whoever the victim of that frivolous complaint was, that impact will not be, that impact will be recognized, and that impact, that negative impact on the basis of a frivolous complaint, will have some accountability and some deterrence to prevent other frivolous complaints from being made and potentially impacting the lives, the reputations, and the operations of the individuals who are doing their best to serve their community, to participate and volunteer in these special districts, in these school boards. I know this is an issue that happens in my district. There's all sorts of boards in the area where I live. And these boards, these districts, these entities that are looking for volunteers to serve on them, to manage anything from invasive weeds to local airports, you name it. These boards are always looking for citizen volunteers. They're always looking for normal members of the community to be able to volunteer their time and provide that perspective of just a regular community member to provide that to that board, to that special district. Well, without this amendment, I'm concerned that the current vacancies, the current struggles that many local governments have, that many school boards and special districts have to fill these spots, is going to be exacerbated. We had conversation just the other day talking about the CCJJ and the fact that it's hard to find citizens to serve on that board, that a lot of times there's vacancies. The same thing exists in our local governments, our local school boards, our local special districts. And so providing that balance of allowing the ethics complaint to move forward, but having the check and balance of a moderate, it's like the good representative from Eastern Colorado said, it has some sting to it, but we're not talking 5 figures here. To have that moderate accountability for a knowingly frivolous complaint, I think provides the appropriate balance and the appropriate guardrails to be able to have ethics supervised by an outside entity, but to also not adversely impact the recruiting and the retention of the local community volunteers who are vital to our school boards, to our special districts, because they've been turned off by the ever-increasing amounts of liability, regulation, and bureaucracy, and as a result, they choose not to serve, which ultimately degrades our society, our flourishing, our human thriving, instead of promoting it. And I want to promote that human flourishing. I want to promote that thriving. I want to ensure that the tension that we have in our society today can be dissipated and diffused, not given additional legs to run farther by having a piece of legislation moves forward that allows competing volunteers, competing ideologies, competing parents, neighbors, community members to be able to leverage an ethics complaint against someone that they just don't like or they just don't get along with in order to promote their ideological belief, to promote whatever their particular agenda is at the expense of another. And this amendment, I think, puts that guardrail into place. So, for all of those reasons, I would urge an aye vote on this amendment. I would urge you to vote yes on this amendment and provide the legislative equivalent of what my body camera provided me. That ultimate backstop to be able to show that that volunteer did the right thing, and that if there was a complaint that was made, there's also balance to ensure that that complaint, if found to be frivolous, was not just swept under the rug and let go without regard to the impact on the recipient of that frivolous complaint. I ask for an aye vote on this amendment.
Further discussion, Representative Luck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I also rise in support of this amendment. There is a saying that the first story always sounds right until the cross-examination starts. And we have been told that there are particular categories that the commission will be able to check off to ensure that there is no violation of frivolousness, and that will be done prior to the respondent, the individual whose the complaint is about, even knowing. But that assumes a lot. It assumes that those complaints on their face are true, which is not something that the Ethics Committee can say one way or the other if they are being an unbiased judge. And so if all of those particular boxes are checked off, they sent it to the right place at the right time in the right way, check, 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 great. But what if all of the content is just erroneous? What if it is completely false? Then you find a situation wherein you have the complainant and the respondent sitting before the Ethics Committee. And it's only through the fact-finding process, it's only through the actual adjudication that it is discovered that those claims made are false. At that point, If it truly is completely false, then it becomes a frivolous claim. This isn't one of those situations where maybe someone saw it this way and somebody else saw it that way. This is a situation where they were just on their face false. But it rose to the level of needing to be inspected by the Ethics Commission because that's their job. And they can't just dismiss it outright, they have to look deeper. And so in those instances, there should be protection. I don't know why we wouldn't want protection. If there's no concern, if the bill sponsors continue to believe that there will never be a frivolous claim that actually crosses the threshold and requires a respondent to sit before the ethics committee, then this is extraneous information that can be added into the statute and have no real cause. But if we're right, and if there will be instances where frivolous claims will get through that door, then should there not be some gatekeeper and some protection? I already have received correspondence from constituents in my district who are planning to file under this bill. They're planning to file an ethics claim in a community that has been wrought with conflict since the election, because certain elected officials are going a route that a particular subsection of the community doesn't like. And they have tried all sorts of things in order to combat the decisions that are being made by these elected officials. Now, those decisions that are being made, so far as I can tell, aren't being made in violation of ethics. They're being made based off of assumptions and foundational understandings of the world that this subset of individuals disagree with. And that is a concern. As we become more and more multicultural, as we become more and more pluralistic, as we become less and less socially cohesive, we do find these conflict points. And if we're going to walk in this and say we want to hold people responsible in this way through the Ethics Commission, as opposed to through elections or other means, then should we not try to make sure to off-ramp anyone who is providing information with bad motivation or with frivolity? Should we not try to incentivize cohesion in our communities? I doubt that anyone in this chamber ran on the idea that they wanted to go to Denver to make things worse, to breed division. I doubt that that was the idea. Did anyone stand at a town hall and say, my definition of thriving is everybody at odds and at each other's throat? I don't think so. I think that we genuinely all desire to build more healthy communities. Now, we have different ways of going about that, and that comes out in these conversations. But I don't think that the motivation ever is to create more conflict, especially unnecessarily. And so to deter individuals who might want to take this avenue and use it for inappropriate purposes, because they see no other way to stymie a particular course of action that is otherwise justly taken by these particular officials and folks. That's wrong. And there should be some deterrent effect. There should be something that says, you know what? We want to make sure that before you file a frivolous complaint, before you file a complaint, you think twice. Again, I don't really understand the bill sponsors' aversion to this idea. And I invite them to more fully explain why it's bad policy to put in common legal language to close the door on potential bad actors. Again, if there's no real concern that this will happen from the bill sponsors, then there's no real harm in adding it in. Once again, I invite you kindly to share more fully why this is a bad idea. Thank you.
Further discussion, Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have examples, not just theories, specific examples of a frivolous lawsuit against a public employee, against a public volunteer, against a volunteer. It's not even a question. The reason of this bill is because of all of the power. The sponsors state that there's all this power that's wielded by volunteers, school boards, things like that. And that's true. And so that has merit. But if there is reason for somebody wielding power, and I guess the determination has already been made, but if the volunteer has this opportunity to wield all this power, so this is a question to the sponsors. So for the sponsors, the volunteer has the opportunity and the motive to wield power, and that requires an ethics, board oversight. Okay. What is the oversight on the individual? Because somebody can file an ethics claim, my understanding. So if they file an ethics claim, would it be a matter of something that's corable? So that's a question. Because once the ethics complaint is made, until it's expunged, if it's ever can be expunged, it's on the record, and it would be corable, as far as I'm sure. So I'm curious from the sponsors whether that is the case. And if it is corable, then somebody could file an ethics complaint. Somebody else could, just spitballing here, somebody else could request a CORA on that ethics complaint and then publish it. And then I'm just asking from the legal standpoint, because we weren't sure whether, so I'm not sure where these questions are going. I'm just asking them. And so I would like to know if a complaint is made, how long until it's determined to be corable? Because the sponsor said that it would be determined, if it was in fact frivolous, it would be determined frivolous before anybody actually knew about it, which is kind of a time travel thing that I'm not really sure how that works. Very interested in how somebody could file an ethics complaint and it could get all the way to the judge, and a judge could determine that it is, in fact, frivolous before anybody knows what it is. So the representative from Grand Junction gave a very specific story about a very specific individual that I'm inclined to believe, yet the sponsor has told us that's impossible to happen, but it did. So so there's a series of questions that I'm hoping that the sponsor can answer, that if something is in accordance of your idea of the ethics violation, and I understand maybe from the legal standpoint it's over as soon as it happens, but for the person that's living it, from the person that's living it standpoint, I think that time frame kind of goes on forever. I think lawyers kind of tend to forget that sometimes, that there's real people at the end of those, that are on the receiving end of those. So we have a real example of something that actually happened that the sponsor is telling us that it is impossible to happen. And I'm having a hard time rectifying that, how something that can be simultaneously impossible but actual. So if something's simultaneously impossible and actual, then there's a disconnect someplace. Then either my friend from Grand Junction is, the sponsor is either, if it's a confidential file, then how does the ethics complaint filed? It happened. Maybe it shouldn't have happened, but it did. Maybe it shouldn't have happened. That's a good thought. That maybe it shouldn't have happened. Maybe the ethics violation shouldn't have been Korah-able, but somebody released it. And that was the wrong thing to do. But I'll bet if we brought the representative from Grand Junction back up here, that nobody who was involved in either releasing it or filing it had any repercussions. But somebody's name was dragged through the mud. And when you say that a board member, a volunteer, would have motive, when you say that a volunteer would have motive to act unethically in their position, you're also saying that somebody who disagrees with them would have motive to act unethically. So just by the nature of that, you want to have an accountability board to go up to maintain against a public volunteer, a volunteer in the system, the same reasons, logically, the same reasons would apply to anybody else who's their opponent. Because if you want access to the same power, if person A has access to all this power and authority, and person B wants it, then an ethics violation could be the easiest way to get to it. An ethics violation with a tactical leak. That happens all the time. And now we have in Grand Junction a tremendous former volunteer, and we have lots of other volunteers. Now, my other colleague has a list, and I would hope that every single one of those persons is a legitimate, if somebody's contemplating this, I would hope that every one of them is a legitimate complaint. But even if it is a legitimate complaint, I would prefer having this there, because this amendment is in fact a chilling effect on filing a lawsuit. You need to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. You need to make sure that everything is together. You need to make sure that all of your data is correct. Not just what you think, but that is going to stand up in a court of law. You need to make sure it's all there, not just a little bit there. You can't just throw it out and then return it. This is just an accountability because for the same purposes you're saying that our volunteers need accountability. If our volunteers need accountability, then the people that might want to replace them need accountability. And there's no other form of accountability because they wouldn't be up against any sort of ethics board, because you can't put the entire public against an ethics board. So this is just a mechanism for accountability. And it should never be used. It should sit in statute, never used. So we get sometimes to the purpose of these amendments is just to find out what's really in the bill. And it seems what's in this bill, if you're unwilling to take an amendment like this, is the intent of the bill is to be weaponized. Because if it can be weaponized, it will be weaponized. That's just a fact. If a law can be weaponized, it will be weaponized. So even if that's not the intent, then we get to what the reality is, and it will be weaponized. This will be weaponized against our volunteers. Guaranteed. Guaranteed it will be weaponized. And the fact that the sponsors are unwilling to put a stopgap to prevent its weaponization is incredibly troubling. You have this, there's a vision, something envisioned against these volunteers that they're nefarious actors, but then somehow everybody that might be against them is somehow righteous, because the only person that you can envision that would file this. But we can ask the question, what if? And I don't think the laws of wishful thinking apply in this one. I've heard it on previous bills. Well, I would hope no one would do that. Well, I would also hope that. But hope isn't a strategy. Well, it's public policy. But if you're at this point, if you're unwilling to put a level of accountability for somebody that might file a false claim, then I think it is a fair question to question the intent of the bill. I think it's actually legitimate to question the intent of the bill. Because what the bill says it is not. If you can't put a piece of accountability in there that should never be used, then that is troubling. And I do question the intent of the sponsors at this point. I ask an aye vote on this amendment and ask for some accountability to balance you need some accountability to balance the force that is being put behind this bill. There is a lot in this bill. You're putting a lot of force against the public volunteers with no accountability. I ask an aye vote.
Representative Hartsook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening.
Good evening.
So members, I got the ethics book sitting right here. Page 6, bottom paragraph says, talk about who's covered in personal jurisdiction. Talks about judicial branch, they're not covered. Boards and commissions, special districts. Now we understand that the sponsors have brought a bill that they want to include the special districts and the volunteers. And we've been up here arguing that volunteers should be exempted, or if you're going to include them, then if there's a false claim against them, it should be a $1,000 fine against who has leveled that. Because in here it says further on, when they adjudicate a case and it's found to be frivolous, it's confidential. Yet, you've heard from this podium that there's cases that it's not confidential. So which is it? Well, we clearly can't guarantee that it's not going to be confidential. We can't guarantee that reputations of volunteers won't be held harmless. We can't even guarantee that people are going to do the right thing. And yet we want to use the power and the force of this legislature and the state government to implement a law to reach all the way down to a volunteer. Now I got to ask you, why on earth would a volunteer want to help if they're going to be held to everything They're not covered by a salary, which is what this is supposed to be focused on. They're trying to help their community. And they're told they're subject to all kinds of regulations that you and I are subject to in this pamphlet. And they want to volunteer and help. Why would they want to do that with the passage of this law? I mean, I wouldn't. Why would I want to stick my neck out on the line and be subject to every punishment conceivable, and I don't even have to do anything wrong? Somebody just has to bring a charge against me. Now, maybe many of you have never had charges leveled against you that were false. I have. I've seen business complaints, I've seen military complaints, I've seen all kinds of things. And you might ask, well, why is that? Well, novel concept, human nature tends to be vindictive. And if you don't get something that you want, sometimes you resort to filing complaints. Why? It's easy. Just march down, fill out a paper, and submit it. Do you tell them, oh no, this is a frivolous complaint, or I'm angry with them, or I didn't get the contract, or I don't like what they did to me? They can easily file something that looks good, sounds good, yet has no merit. And if you're naive enough to believe that doesn't happen, then I've got some oceanfront property for sale in Arizona. They wrote this book and this commission to keep people honest. And they're kept honest by the potential that if they do wrong, the commission that has jurisdiction can adjudicate and take action accordingly. But a volunteer is simply trying to help. A volunteer is trying to help their community do some of their civic functions. They might even be there for volunteer hours. They might get a calling from their church or something to do service in their community. And yet we're going to subject them to this jurisdiction, the power of this agency that you and I are subject to, and other government employees. Somehow that doesn't quite seem a fair balance. Because you know what? If you and I get charged, we have folks downstairs and others that can give us guidance. Volunteers, do you think a government lawyer is going to help them? That answer would be no. They'd either have to pay for it themselves or fight it themselves, but that's at their cost, their expense, and their suffering. If the intent is to get rid of the volunteers, this is probably a good step in that direction. I would hope that's not the intent, but that would be the unintended consequences. And this body is notorious for passing laws that have unintended consequences. And this amendment is simply trying to mitigate one of those unintended consequences. All we're trying to say is let's take one pause and help. I urge an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Frizzell.
Why is it I always follow tall people? Good evening, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, this is an excellent amendment. It is a great compromise. It gives you your ethics commission, but it protects employees and organizations both. This amendment it's simple, and it's not out of the realm of what we work with on a daily basis. If someone files a frivolous civil lawsuit, say, claims that they tripped over a curb, but they really didn't. You have the right to protect yourself. You have the right to recoup your expenses. This isn't any different. Persons filing claims found by the commission to be frivolous must be assessed a fine. We're not talking civil damages, we're not talking anything else. It's a fine. The thing that's really important to understand about this is that if someone is filing a frivolous claim against an employee, that organization 99.9% of the time is going to be defending their employee. Whether it's a school district, a metro district, a county, a municipality, that entity is going to be defending their employee against a frivolous claim. And that means they're going to incur expenses far more than $1,000. This is a fair amendment. This is fair to the organization. This is fair to the employee. We must not continue to have the mindset in this chamber that people are guilty before proven innocent. And this is what this bill says. This is what it does. It's a very, very important thing that these organizations have the ability to recoup damages if there is a frivolous claim. It is fair. I ask again for an aye vote on this amendment. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L9. A division has been requested. Okay, once again, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L9. A division has been requested. All those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated. All those in favor of Amendment L9, please stand and remain standing or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place or raise your hand and keep it raised until the count is taken. You may be seated. Amendment L9 is lost. We're back to the bill. Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I believe this bill will do the opposite of the sponsor's intent. It'll discourage the average person from volunteering in their local community. When a person has a good job, kids in school, and everything else is great, why would they want to be subject to this? And if there is, you know, most of these boards already have their own ethics commission or board code of ethics. And if there wasn't one, like in the case of the school district mentioned earlier, then we would want to give them the appropriate time to put together an ethics code of ethics or whatever rules they can handle locally. So I move L007 and ask that it properly be displayed.
You may proceed.
Thank you. All this amendment does is move the date back a little bit, give school districts, special districts, your firefighters, any of those groups a little more time to either put their own quarter or prepare for this, get ready. And I ask for an aye vote on this.
Representative Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is a petition clause on the bill already, so there is no need for this. I urge a no vote.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L7. All those in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. The noes have it, and the amendment fails. Representative Winter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I'd like to move Amendment L018 to House Bill 1065 and ask that it properly be displayed.
You may proceed.
Thank you, sir. So basically the amendment states, upon the filing of a complaint against a volunteer special district official or volunteer school district official, the commission shall provide information about the complaint, the commission's adjudicative process, and the potential penalties to the volunteer special district official or the volunteer school district official within 10 days of the filing of the complaint. I urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Representative Parenti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, we urge a no vote on this for a couple of reasons. First of all, there are a number of what we would call volunteer elected officials, employees of the state that are already subject to the Independent Ethics Code Commission. I would use as an example most of the mayors and boards of trustees and city council members for a lot of our municipalities. They are volunteer in that they are unpaid. Right, so we would be putting on a special set of conditions for a special set of persons who would be subject to the commission's jurisdiction. In addition, we are levying a change to the process of the jurisdiction that is not within our purview to change, and so I would urge a no vote. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the adoption of Amendment L18. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. The noes have it, and the amendment fails. Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1065? Seeing none, the question before us, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bad bill, vote no.
The committee will stand in a brief recess. The committee will come back to order. The new fiscal note requested has been provided, confirming no change in fiscal impact. So we are back to, let's see, did we already vote on Amendment L18?
The bill.
Okay, we're back to the bill. Is there further discussion on House Bill 1065?
I urge
Seeing
an aye-
none,
I urge an aye vote on the bill.
Representative Story urges an aye vote. Seeing no further discussion, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1065. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the bill passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Seeing no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come to order. Mr. Shebel, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, your Committee of the Whole begs leave to report it is under consideration the following touch bills, being the second reading thereof and making the following recommendations thereon. House Bill 1065 as amended, 1135 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered, engrossed, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 111 as amended, 261 as amended, 276 as amended, 284, 290 as amended, passed on second reading, ordered, revised, and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. House Bill 1294 laid over until April 29th, 2023. House Bill 1282 laid over until May 1st, 2023.
Speaker Pro Tem Degree Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House now adopt the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Per House Rule 16, I move the following motion. Shall the main question be now put on adoption of the Committee of the Whole reports and the amendments that follow?
Members, for your information, an affirmative vote on this motion ends any further debate on the amendments to the Committee of the Whole report. We will vote on this motion, and if the vote is a majority yes, then we will immediately vote on each of the pending amendments to the Committee of the Whole report in inverse order with no debate allowed. The question before the House is, shall the main question be now put? Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Garcia votes yes. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Morrow votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Please close the machine. With 45 aye, 20 no, and 0 excuse, the motion is adopted. Mr. Shebel, please read the Amabile amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Amabile moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting the following Rex Amendment L41 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment lost and that Senate Bill 290 as amended passed.
Representative Amabile.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the Amabile amendment to the Committee of the Whole.
And ask that it be properly displayed.
And ask that it be properly displayed.
Members, it is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the Amabile amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Garcia votes yes. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Morrow votes yes. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Please close the machine. With 46 aye, 19 no, and 0 excuse, the Amabile amendment is adopted. Mr. Shebel, please read the Epps amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Epps moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in adopting House Bill 1135 to show that House Bill 1135 as amended lost.
Representative Epps.
I move the Epps amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it be displayed.
It is properly displayed. Members, the motion before us is the adoption of the Epps amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Garcia votes yes. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Please close the machine. With 23 aye, 42 no, and 0 excused, the Epps amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Puglisi moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Puglisi amendment, L9 to House Bill 1065, to show that said amendment passed, that House Bill 1065 is amended passed.
Assistant Minority Leader Puglisi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The motion before us is the adoption of the Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the Puglisi amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the second Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Puglisi moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Puglisi amendment, L8 to House Bill 1065, to show that said amendment passed, that House Bill 1065 is amended passed.
Assistant Minority Leader Puglisi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the second Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the second Puglisi amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 21 aye, 44 no, and 0 excused, the second Puglisi amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the Wilson amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Wilson moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Wilson Amendment L5 to House Bill 1065, to show that said amendment passed, that House Bill 1065 is amended passed.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Wilson Amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it properly be displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the Wilson Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the Wilson Amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the DeGraff Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative DeGraff moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following DeGraff Amendment L52 to Senate Bill 276, to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 276 is amended passed.
Representative DeGraff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L052 to 23 SB 23-276. Ask that it be displayed and ask for an aye vote.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the DeGraff Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Janay, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Janay votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representatives Herod and Holtorf. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the DeGraff amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Winter amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Winter moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Winter Amendment L49 to Senate Bill 276 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 276 as amended passed.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to move the Winter Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the Winter Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Michelson-Jeannet, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the Winter Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the first Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Holtorf Amendment L37 to Senate Bill 276 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 276 as amended passed.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the first Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it properly be displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the first Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Jeannet, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the first Holtorf Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the second Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Holtorf Amendment L40 to Senate Bill 276 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 276 as amended passed.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move the second Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole, L40, and ask that it properly be displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the second Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson-Jeannet, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson-Jeannet votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. With 20 aye, 40, oh, please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the second Holtorf Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the third Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Holtorf Amendment L39 to Senate Bill 276 to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 276 as amended passed.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the third Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it properly be displayed for
It is-
Amendment L039.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the third Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Michelson-Jeannet, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Byrd. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the third Holtorf Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the fourth Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Holtorf Amendment, L36, to Senate Bill 276 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 276 as amended passed.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to move the fourth Holtorf Amendment, L036, and ask that it properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the fourth Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
Nope.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the fourth Holtorf Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the Bottoms Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Bottoms moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Bottoms Amendment, L42 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 290 as amended passed.
Representative Bottoms.
I move 042 to report of the Committee of the Whole and ask it to be displayed.
The amendment is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the Bottoms Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the Bottoms Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the first Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Evans moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Evans Amendment, L29 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 290 as amended passed.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the first Evans Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole and ask for it to be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the first Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the first Evans Amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the second Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Evans moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Evans Amendment, L28 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 290 as amended passed.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the second Evans Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole and ask for it to be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the second Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the second Evans Amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the third Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Evans moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Evans Amendment L27 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 290 is amended passed.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the third Evans Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole and ask for it to be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the third Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the third Evans Amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the fourth Evans Amendment on the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Evans moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Evans Amendment L26 to Senate Bill 290 to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 290 is amended passed.
Representative Evans.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the fourth Evans Amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole and ask for it to be displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the fourth Evans Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Please close the machine. With 20 aye, 45 no, and 0 excused, the fourth Evans Amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the Wilson Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Wilson moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following DeGraff Amendment L24 to Senate Bill 111 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 111 is amended passed.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the second Wilson Amendment to the Committee of the Whole and ask that it be displayed.
It is properly displayed. The motion before us is the adoption of the second Wilson Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the second Wilson Amendment is lost. Mr. Shebel, please read the fifth Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Holtorf moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Holtorf Amendment L29 to Senate Bill 111 to show that said amendment passed and that Senate Bill 111 is amended passed.
Representative Holtorf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the Fifth Amendment to the Committee of the Whole, Fifth Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole in reference to Senate Bill 113, Amendment 029, as that it properly displayed, and I ask for a favorable recommendation.
This is to Senate Bill 111 for everyone's awareness. Members, the question before us is the adoption of the fifth Holtorf Amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Shebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the fifth Holtorf amendment is lost. Mr. Schiebel, please read the second Bottoms amendment to the Committee of the Whole report.
Representative Bottoms moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole to reverse the action taken by the committee in not adopting the following Wilson Amendment, L20, to Senate Bill 111 to show that said amendment passed, that Senate Bill 111 is amended passed.
Representative Bottoms.
I move the second Bottoms amendment to the report of the Committee of the Whole and ask it to be properly displayed.
It is properly displayed. The question before us is the adoption of the second Bottoms amendment to the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Garcia votes no. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Morrow votes no. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Michelson Janae votes no. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
No.
Representative Ortiz votes no. Please close the machine. With 19 aye, 46 no, and 0 excused, the second Bottoms amendment is lost. There are no additional amendments at the desk. The question before us is the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Mr. Schiebel, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Garcia, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Garcia votes yes. Representative Morrow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Morrow votes yes. Representative Ortiz, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Ortiz votes yes. Representative Michelson Janae, how do you vote?
Yes.
Representative Michelson Janae votes yes. Please close the machine. With 46 aye, 19 no, and 0 excused, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Madam Majority Leader, I have a bit of business. Reports of committees of reference, Mr. Schiebel.
Committee on Judiciary, after consideration on the merits, the committee recommends following. Senate Bill 24 be postponed indefinitely. Senate Bills 34 is amended and 254 be referred to the Committee of the Whole with favorable recommendation. Senate Bills 97 is amended and 257 be referred favorably to the Committee on Appropriations.
Mr. Schiebel, message from the Senate.
Madam Speaker, the Senate has adopted
Message from
and
the Senate will be
transmits-
printed in the Journal. Message from the Reviser.
We herewith transmit
Message
without
from the
comment.
Reviser will be printed in the Journal. Introduction of bills.
House Bill 1310 by Representative DeGree Kennedy concerning the conditions under which a person commits a civil infraction for misusing a public safety answering point.
House Bill 1310 will be assigned to the Committee on Judiciary.
Senate Bill 213 by Senator Moreno, also Representatives Judah and Woodrow, concerning state land use requirements and in connection therewith, establishing a process to diagnose and address housing needs across the state, prohibiting the local government from enforcing certain occupancy limits, modifying the content requirements for county and municipal master plans, criteria for certain grant programs, and expenditures from the Multimodal Transportation Options Fund to align with state strategic growth objectives and making an appropriation.
Senate Bill 213 will be assigned to the Committee on Transportation, Housing, and Local Government.
Senate Bill 279 by Senators Fields and Hansen, also Representatives Basenecker and Joseph, concerning prohibited activity related to firearms and in connection therewith, regulating firearms and firearm frames and receivers that do not have serial numbers, prohibiting manufacture of firearms, frames, and receivers by unlicensed persons, establishing a process for serializing firearms, frames, and receivers, and designating machine gun conversion devices as dangerous weapons.
Senate Bill 279 will be assigned to the Committee on Judiciary.
Senate Bill 291 by Senators Fenberg and Cutter, also Representatives DeGree, Kennedy, and Martinez, concerning the Public Utilities Commission's regulation of energy utilities and in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senate Bill 291 will be assigned to the Committee on Finance. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until tomorrow.
The balance of the calendar will be laid over until tomorrow. Madam Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, if I could give or say a few announcements, if you could clear off the food and any drink that you might have on your desk, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. And with that, Madam Speaker,
Madam Majority Leader, almost. We have announcements. Okay. Representative Sirota.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of House Appropriations and members who might have bills tomorrow, listen up. House Appropriations will be meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. in the Old State Library to hear House Bill 1066, House Bill 1281, Senate Bill 97, Senate Bill 159, Senate Bill 198, Senate Bill 200, Senate Bill 253, Senate Bill 257, Senate Bill 283, Senate Bill 294, and Senate Bill 54.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House adjourn until 8 a.m. on Saturday, April 29th, and the dress code is relaxed.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand adjourned until tomorrow at April 29th at 8 a.m.